For centuries, the world believed the wives of the fallen angels were victims, but heaven remembers them differently. Their story was whispered through forbidden scrolls and silenced scriptures, hidden beneath the surface of history, erased. Not because it was unimportant, but because it was too terrifying to remember. These women were thought to be innocent, fragile, taken by celestial beings against their will. Yet what if that was never the truth? What if behind their beauty and sorrow lay a darkness even the heavens could not overlook? In the ancient world, before the flood, before the silence of judgment, something happened that tore the boundary between the divine and the mortal. The angels fell, yes, but their wives chose to follow. They sought forbidden power, knowledge no human was meant to possess, and they paid a price that eternity itself could not erase. What if the punishment of the angels was only half the story? What if the true judgment, the one never meant to be spoken, was reserved for the women who joined them, the wives who crossed the line between heaven and earth? The ones who turned sacred desire into rebellion. Today you will learn what Michael, heaven's fiercest warrior, truly did to them. The story of divine wrath and corrupted beauty begins not in fire, but in silence. Because heaven's judgment doesn't always come with thunder. Sometimes it comes with wings. In the beginning they were called the Watchers, celestial beings of radiant light, appointed by the Creator himself to watch over humanity. They were not soldiers of wrath or judges of men, but guardians, sent to guide, to teach, and to preserve the purity of creation. Their light burned brighter than any star, their voices carried the harmony of heaven, and for a time they were perfect. Each movement of their wings shimmered with purpose. Each glance toward the earth was meant to be filled with compassion. But even light can learn to envy the shadows it illuminates. From their high places, the Watchers looked down upon the growing generations of mankind. The world below was raw, wild, and alive with beauty, a living canvas of the Creator's design. Among the sons of men, one lineage thrived in the valleys beneath the mountains, the descendants of Cain, the first murderer. These were not people of worship, but of power, artistry, and passion. They carved their own gods from stone. Their music filled the night air, and their women, their daughters, were unlike any others. They possessed a beauty that seemed to burn through the veil of heaven itself. They were alluring, not merely in form, but in spirit, intelligent, bold, and unafraid to reach for what was forbidden. To the Watchers, these women were a mystery beyond understanding. They were fragile, yet powerful, mortal, yet radiant. Their eyes reflected not the light of heaven, but the fire of ambition, and the angels, once pure, began to look upon them with a kind of wonder that bordered on worship. At first, it was curiosity, a divine fascination. They observed the daughters of Cain, as one might gaze upon a dangerous flame, knowing it could burn, yet unable to look away. But curiosity turned to longing, and longing to desire. The Watchers had seen the face of God, yet they began to crave, something the heavens never offered them, to be seen, admired, and chosen. The daughters of Cain, on the other hand, sensed this weakness. They saw in the angels not divine perfection, but opportunity. They longed for something greater than earthly love. They desired power, forbidden knowledge that could elevate them beyond mortal limits. And the Watchers, intoxicated by their gaze, were ready to give it. The first meetings were secret, hidden in the shadows beneath the mountain where the children of Cain built their cities. There, in the silence of forbidden nights, the divine met the corrupt. The angels descended in brilliance and flame, and the women welcomed them with open hearts, not in fear, but in hunger for what they could gain. In those moments, creation trembled, for heaven and earth had become one, not in harmony, but in defiance. The Watchers shared their secrets, the mysteries of stars, metals, enchantments, and the hidden laws of creation. They taught them the art of war, the making of weapons, the crafting of jewels, and the whispers of enchantment that could bend the will of men. To the women, this was not sin, it was revelation. They had become partners in divine rebellion, equal participants in a cosmic act of betrayal. The heavens watched in silence. What had begun as duty had turned into seduction. The watchers, once pure as the morning star, now walked among men as gods, and the women who once looked upward in wonder now stood beside them, crowned in forbidden glory. Together, they created a new world order, one ruled by knowledge, strength, and pride. But beneath the mountain, something darker began to stir. The power they shared did not remain contained within their union. It spread through their offspring, beings neither fully angel nor human, creatures of immense strength and insatiable appetite. The women felt it first, the weight of what they had birthed. The earth itself began to groan under the presence of their children, the Nephilim, giants who devoured the land, who ruled with terror, who sought dominion over every living thing. And so, what began as a union of beauty became the seed of destruction. The women who desired to be like gods had brought forth monsters. The angels who longed for love found themselves chained to corruption. Their union was no longer a secret. It had become a curse echoing through every corner of creation. And so, beneath the mountain, desire became rebellion. What was once the passion of the divine turned into a defiance that reached the very throne of heaven. The light of the watchers dimmed. The beauty of the daughters faded. Their names would soon be written in dust and shadow, and their legacy a warning for all who would defy the order of creation. But the union they celebrated would unleash a corruption even the heavens could not contain. The earth groaned beneath the weight of their union. From the wombs of the daughters of Cain came not children, but titans, beings born of celestial fire and mortal flesh. Their birth was not like the birth of men. It was violent, unnatural, the world itself trembling as if creation resisted their existence. These were the Nephilim, the offspring of rebellion, towering figures whose strength defied imagination. Their voices thundered across the valleys, and their hunger was endless. They rose higher than towers, their eyes glowing like molten gold, their breath a storm. Wherever they walked, the earth cracked open. Trees bent and rivers changed their course beneath their feet. Humanity looked upon them in awe and terror, for they were gods in the flesh, or so they believed. The Nephilim ruled over men not with wisdom, but with dominion and blood. They devoured what they ruled. Villages were emptied. Cities fell silent. The cries of the weak were drowned beneath the laughter of giants. The women, once mortal, were exalted. They stood beside their monstrous sons as queens, veiled in splendor and corruption. Their beauty had once drawn angels from heaven, and now their power kept men on their knees. Thrones of stone and gold rose in their honor, and their names were sung in rituals that mocked the Creator himself. They wore jewels forged from the heavens' metals, and their sons crowned them as mothers of gods. But behind their glory was something darker, a haunting awareness that what they had birthed was no blessing but a curse. The Nephilim turned on each other, their hunger greater than any loyalty. Kingdoms of giants waged wars that tore the skies apart. Blood filled the rivers. The sun was blotted by smoke. Humanity was crushed beneath their feet. The very beings the Watchers once swore to protect were now food for their offspring. The women watched in silence as their empire of pride descended into chaos. The same desire that once elevated them now began to consume them. And yet even in their arrogance, heaven was not silent. The heavens watched with eyes of flame. The angel who stood nearest to God, the one who bore the sword of divine authority, saw every act, every cry, every drop of blood spilled upon the soil. His name was Michael, and Michael was watching. their glory was short-lived. For every act of defiance, a reckoning was being prepared. The skies that had once opened to welcome the watchers would soon open again, not with love, but with judgment. The wings of heaven were stirring. The silence before the storm was ending. The heavens grew silent. It was the kind of silence that comes before a storm, the stillness of creation holding its breath. The rebellion of the watchers had reached its peak, and the cries of humanity had risen like smoke before the throne of God. What began as desire had become corruption, and what began as beauty had turned to blasphemy. The balance of creation was shattered. The earth bled, and heaven could wait no longer. The court of heaven convened. Thrones of light surrounded the Eternal One, and every eye of the heavenly host turned toward the corrupted world below. The watchers had defied their command, and their wives had joined them in rebellion. No more could the heavens watch in silence. From the midst of that radiant assembly came a voice, not thunder, not flame, but something greater. It was the decree that would change both heaven and earth forever. Go, bind the watchers, judge their wives, cleanse the earth, and from among the legions of angels, one stepped forward. His wings carried fire. His eyes bore judgment. His presence silenced even the lightning. He was Michael, the Prince of Heaven, the guardian of divine order, the sword in the hand of God. To him was given authority not just to strike, but to purify. His mission was not vengeance, it was restoration. The heavens trembled as Michael unsheathed his blade, a weapon forged from divine light, gleaming with the essence of creation itself. The time of mercy had ended. For centuries, God had endured the cries of the oppressed, the corruption of the sacred, the defilement of his creation. But now mercy was exhausted. Justice demanded action. The armies of heaven moved like a storm. The skies darkened, the mountains shook, and the earth waited for the strike of divine wrath. The watchers would be bound in chains of flame, their power stripped away. But for their wives, the women who had embraced rebellion, who had sought divinity through desire, the punishment that awaited them would be far worse than death. Fire fell upon the mountains like a second dawn, but it was not light that rose, it was judgment. The heavens opened, and Michael descended, his wings burning with divine flame, his presence shaking the very foundations of the earth. The air itself seemed to scream as celestial fire collided with the corrupted soil. The watchers trembled, knowing the hour of their reckoning had come. And beside them stood the women, the wives who had shared their rebellion, still clothed in beauty, still proud of what they had become. But Michael did not come to admire what heaven once found beautiful. He came to destroy what had corrupted it. With each beat of his wings, the fire of heaven swept across the valley. The brilliance that once surrounded the daughters of Cain was torn away. Their splendor, that luminous grace which had seduced angels, began to wither. Skin turned pale as ash, faces that once reflected divine allure twisted into horror. Their eyes, once bright with desire, now reflected the agony of separation from the light they had defied. What had seduced angels now repulsed all creation. They screamed not merely in pain, but in realization. They had not just lost beauty, they had lost their place in existence. The very essence that had once made them radiant now burned against them. The angels they had once loved turned their faces away. Even the earth recoiled beneath them. And as the divine fire passed over them, their names, the last traces of who they once were, faded from the book of life. Heaven erased them. Their identities, their memories, their legacies, all undone in a single breath of divine decree. No monument would bear their likeness. No song would speak their name. They were not slain, but unmade. Beauty turned to shadow. Glory turned to dust. Yet even as the fire consumed them, the punishment was not complete. Their screams did not echo into nothingness. They lingered, trapped between realms, bound to the curse they had brought upon themselves. But that was only the beginning. For their curse would echo beyond flesh. The transformation of the wives was not the end of their story. It was the birth of something far more terrible, a living curse that would haunt the world for generations, whispering through darkness, seducing, destroying, and reminding creation of the day beauty itself fell. From the ashes of judgment came a new horror. The fire faded, the mountains fell silent, and for a fleeting moment it seemed as though the wrath of heaven had ended. But then the decree was spoken, the sentence that would echo through eternity. In the Book of Enoch 19:2 it is written, "The women of the angels shall become sirens. Their destruction was not to be final. Their punishment was transformation. The heavens watched as the once beautiful wives, now stripped of all glory, were cast from the mountains into the churning seas below. The waters roared as if creation itself rejected them. They fell screaming, their cries swallowed by the waves, their bodies dissolving into the depths. Yet death did not claim them. The sea, that ancient symbol of chaos and divine exile, became their prison. For in scripture and prophecy alike, the sea is the place God does not dwell, the abyss of separation, the realm beyond his presence. And that was where they were condemned to remain. When they rose again, they were no longer women. They were creatures half human, half demon, their forms twisted by divine curse. The sea clung to their bodies, shaping them into horrors of unending beauty and despair. Their eyes glowed like drowned embers, their voices soft and haunting, songs that could steal the will of men. They became the embodiment of temptation, singing melodies so beautiful that they drew sailors to their deaths, leading them into the same destruction they had once embraced. Their voices carried the remnants of their former grace, luring all who heard them with promises of love, power, and immortality. But behind every note was the echo of divine wrath, the warning of what happens when the sacred is defied. They had desired to be like gods, and now they were bound as monsters, eternally repeating their sin in the form of seduction. Their song was no longer a hymn of passion, but a weapon of ruin. And so they wandered the seas, cursed to forever reenact their rebellion, their beauty now a beacon of death. Heaven had not merely destroyed them, it had condemned them to reflect their own corruption. Yet even this was not the end, for their transformation into sirens was only the beginning, the first stage of an eternal torment that would stretch beyond flesh, beyond the sea, and into the very fabric of spiritual existence. The sea that had once swallowed them became their eternal grave. Yet it did not bring rest, it brought torment. The flames of judgment did not vanish in the depths. They burned beneath the waters, turning them into a boiling sea of divine wrath. Ancient writings such as the Apocalypse of Peter described the punishment reserved for these women, those who led creation astray. It is written that the seductresses of the earth are hung by their hair above boiling waters, tormented by the very beauty that once ensnared others. Their hair, their pride, their weapon of allure became the chain of their suffering. They who once seduced now suffer in the same seduction. Their cries echo through the storm, blending with the crash of the waves. Lightning splits the dark skies as fire and water intertwine, forming a purgatory of endless anguish. The sirens swing above the molten sea, caught between heaven and abyss, not dead, not alive, but eternally undone. Their faces, twisted with sorrow, still bear traces of the beauty that doomed them. Each tear that falls becomes steam, each scream another note in their cursed song that drifts over the waters, luring the curious, the reckless, the proud, just as they once lured angels. The heavens are not blind to their suffering. Amidst the storm stands a figure upon the clouds, Michael, the Archangel, the enforcer of divine order. His sword no longer burns in wrath but in remembrance. He watches not with hate, but with holy purpose. To him, their torment is not cruelty, it is justice fulfilled. Their rebellion had corrupted heaven's creation, and their punishment reflects the measure of their sin, perfect symmetry, perfect justice. And so, the seas became their eternal prison, a mirror of divine consequence. The fire of heaven reflected in the dark waters, the voices of the condemned rising like ghosts of temptation. But even as their forms were bound to torment, their story did not vanish from the memory of heaven. It was not erased. It was sealed beneath the flood. Then came the flood. The sky opened, and the waters of heaven and earth collided in divine fury. The roar of judgment drowned every voice, every empire, every trace of rebellion. Mountains disappeared beneath waves, and cities of stone were swallowed whole. The earth was baptized in destruction, and all that the watchers and their wives had built was erased. It was not merely a cleansing, it was a rewriting of existence. The fire of Michael's sword was replaced by the deluge, washing away even memory itself. The names of the wives of the fallen were spoken one final time in heaven, then struck from every record, every echo of creation. To be forgotten was their final judgment, the erasure of existence itself, their faces, once radiant, now blurred into myth. Their stories dissolved into silence. No scripture carried their names, no generation claimed their blood. The daughters who had once defied heaven now existed only as shadows in the deep. Divine silence became their ultimate exile. For in heaven's order, to be unremembered is to be unmade. There is no greater punishment than for creation to forget you ever were. The flood receded, leaving behind a world renewed but haunted. A creation that still trembled beneath the weight of what had been lost. The mountains stood again, but they remembered the fire. The seas lay still, but within them stirred a secret. For even though heaven had closed the book on their story, the waters still whispered. Some say the sirens still sing beneath the waves, their voices faint but unending, calling to those who dare to listen. The silence of their names may be complete, but their spirits still linger in the depths, mourning what they once were and tempting man toward what should never be repeated. But what if their silence was only the surface, and their spirits still whisper beneath the deep? As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be again. Those words were not merely prophecy. They were warning. What once happened beneath the mountains now unfolds beneath the glow of screens and the hum of machines. The rebellion that began with angels and women has found new vessels, not in celestial unions, but in human ambition. Once again, man reaches for the forbidden. Once again, the line between creation and corruption begins to blur. In laboratories and digital realms, humanity seeks to transcend its limits. Flesh merges with metal, thought fuses with algorithm. The pursuit of immortality, once the dream of the fallen, now becomes the obsession of man. Genetic codes are rewritten as though they were divine scripts to be edited, redefined, improved. Artificial intelligence breathes synthetic consciousness into lifeless circuits, and mankind calls it progress. But heaven hears a different sound, the echo of the same rebellion that began before the flood. The spirit of the Watchers has returned, clothed in innovation and disguised as enlightenment. Humanity once again seeks knowledge without wisdom, power without submission, creation without the Creator. The very technologies celebrated as humanity's triumphs whisper the same ancient temptation. You will be like gods. It is the same voice that once spoke to Eve, the same desire that drew angels from heaven, the same corruption that brought the flood. And in this new age, the daughters of Cain wear different faces. They are not women in the valleys, but ideas, movements, and desires, forces that lure mankind into the same spiritual trap. The world bows once more to beauty, pleasure, and pride, mistaking rebellion for freedom. And though the seas have quieted, the sirens still sing, not from the waters, but from the circuits of progress. Their song is softer now, woven into the hum of data and the pulse of technology, promising power, promising transcendence. But beneath that melody lies the same deceit, the same ancient hunger that once devoured the world. Humanity listens, entranced by its own brilliance, unaware that the rebellion has already returned, and heaven once again is watching. And there was war in heaven. The words of Revelation thunder across eternity, echoing the promise that what began in Genesis will end in divine triumph. Michael will rise again. The same archangel who once descended in fire to bind the Watchers will once more take flight, his sword blazing like the dawn. Once he bound the fallen, soon he will bind the dragon, the ancient serpent who deceived the nations. The heavens will blaze with light as the armies of God gather once more, and the sound of celestial drums will shake both earth and eternity. This is not the end of judgment, but the fulfillment of justice. The same hand that purged the ancient corruption will rise again when rebellion reaches its peak. When the final battle begins, Michael will stand where he always has, between creation and chaos, guarding what is holy until all is restored. They were never victims, and neither are we if we choose the light. The fall of the wives of the Watchers is more than a tale of judgment. It is a reflection of the choices we still face today. The spirit of rebellion whispers through every generation, but so does the call of redemption. And the question remains, when Michael rises again, whose side will you be on? If this story moved you or opened your eyes to the hidden truths of Scripture, share your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe the rebellion has returned in our time? Let your voice be heard. Like this video, subscribe to Bible Origins and turn on notifications so you never miss what heaven revealed and earth forgot.